Malawi. The country is set to hold elections on the 16th of September amid a deepening economic crisis. The country has been experiencing a severe foreign exchange shortage, and this has primarily been caused by a decline in exports, a loss of investor confidence, and an unsustainable debt burden, which has led to high inflation as well as a scarcity of essential goods. And these essential goods include fuel and medicine. Chief Economist and Director of Economic Research and Strategy at Don Consultancy Group, Chifipa Mhango, says the upcoming elections will be a choice between economic progress on one end and stagnation on the other. He joins us on the line. A very good afternoon to you, Chifipa.
Good afternoon to you, Thami, and good afternoon to your listeners.
So that time has come once again where Malawans have to choose their next leader. What type of a leader does the country need in order to drag itself out of the economic crisis that it is currently experiencing? And looking at the various candidates, who would you say are the likely choices?
Well, I think in terms of the elections in Malawi, it is more based on the point of view of different factors. But I think key to these elections is more around the delivery in terms of the policy dynamics. So the economic situation in the country, I think, is playing a much more significant role in terms of how people will be making choices. So in terms of the front runners with regard to the dynamics on the political landscape in Malawi, it's pointing towards a close, or I can say a tight race between the current president, Lazarus Chakwera, and the former president, Peter Mutharika. So likelihood of these two emerging as winners in the elections is actually becoming out much more stronger. But based on the factors around how these two have managed the economy, both the current regime but also the previous regime of Peter Mutharika. So people are looking at that in terms of making differences in regard to who can implement the policies better.
And where does Joyce Banda stand of the PP?
Well, I think the dynamics of politics in Malawi is such that a tribal and regional basis play a significant role. And from the point of view of Joyce Banda, you remember that she actually even lost the previous election while she was president. It's more driven by element that in the politics of Malawi, you have to have a political base. So she doesn't seem to have a strong area where she can define that this is our political base, which can give her the numbers to emerge in the point of view of the elections in Malawi.
So we have noticed over the past weeks prices increasing to a point where the less advantaged population is struggling to stay afloat. What economic challenges lie ahead for the incoming leader?
I think the major thing is about dealing with the economic situation in Malawi. The levels of the growth patterns in terms of the economy seem to be much more on the weaker side. On average, the past 5 years, we've seen a growth rate in Malawi on average of almost 2%, not more than any figure on 2%. So it's been an average of 2%. And that is creating challenges in terms of creating of employment for the youth as well as for the women to participate in the economy. And then you're looking at the inflation, which has been on the higher side. The current rate is around 27.3%. Food inflation is around 32%. And all those are creating a burden in terms of how people can actually live comfortably in Malawi. But you also look at the food security, which has been a major challenge with regard to how the environment has been managed, especially Malawi being reliant in terms of agriculture. And I think the inefficiencies with regard to the fertilizer subsidy distribution has been quite challenging for even the current regime. But I think also the areas of latest spending in the country. So people have also been observing that while the people are suffering, if you look at those in government or those holding political offices, they seem to be living a lavish life, which doesn't relate into the poverty levels in Malawi. So people are watching those dynamics. Then you've also got forex shortages in Malawi, which is creating a scarcity in terms of fuel as well as medication, purchasing from the government side. And then I think also the issue of corruption has been looked at as a point of sadness, in the point that there has been an element of selective justice where the real culprits with regard to corruption, they are still hanging loose while they are only looking at it. The little boys on the ground who are more or less become like the ones you send to go and do things. So it is a question of all these dynamics coming into play. But I think on the political side, there is still question marks around the death of former Vice President Saulos Chilima in terms of how the investigations were done. So questions still arise in terms of people looking for better answers from the next government.
You'll remember just a couple of months ago, around July, the IMF said that Malawi's debt bill this year will be $2 billion more than what the country holds in foreign reserves. What measures can be put in place to deal with the rising debt levels in Malawi?
Well, debt is a question of how you accumulate debt. So you have to look at how best you are managing your fiscal expenditure in terms of ensuring that you are managing the economy with regard to expenditure that rests in terms of your revenue base. So when you've got a revenue base which is weaker, you need then to manage to say where is your spending pattern. So you have to prioritize areas of expenditure. So the current regime, as we have spoken so many times on this forum here, is that they seem not to have taken any element of advice with regard to reckless spending. And that obviously in a country where the revenue base is very weak, you tend then to look at other ways of raising the funds with regard to expenditure. And that has led to massive excessive borrowing in the Malawi context. So it's easy to manage if you focus on your fiscal discipline. But also in terms of growing export base, diversifying your export base, and also creating more variation in your export base. Mining provides much more opportunity for Malawi, but recently, and I think even the past years, we have seen challenges in terms of how the mining deals have been done in Malawi, where, for instance, government is only getting a share of only not more than 15%, and all the revenues that are going out of the country are not getting a benefit in terms of the Malawi economy from the point of view of the earnings that comes from minerals. So I think all of those dynamics have to look at in terms of managing the economy of Malawi with an element of fiscal discipline, but also element of diversification of export baskets to ensure that no revenue remains in the country.
And as you're saying, Chifipa, at the end of the day, it's really about, will the candidates, whoever becomes the incoming, leader or president of Malawi, puts in place the policies that will bring about this turnaround so there can be a difference in the lives of the average man in the street and also of businesses that are operating in Malawi. We thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Have a great one.
Thank you very much, Thami.
Thank you. That's the Chief Economist and Director of Economic Research and Strategy at the Don Consultancy Group, Chifipa Mhango, taking us to exactly 22 minutes after 4 p.m.